Hello and welcome to the PardeuxRaids.com raid guide. I am Pardeux and I'll be talking you through the 25-man heroic Feng the Accursed encounter. Feng is the second encounter in Mogu'shan vaults and is a 4-phase fight, during which Feng will choose one unique weapon for each phase. There will be 4 weapon racks on hard mode and only 3 on normal mode. On hard mode, the raid can choose the order of weapons, giving you a strategic advantage for when and how to handle his abilities. My raid strategy involves choosing staff, shield, fist, and finally spear. With that said, let's begin with discussing the mechanics. The most important abilities in this fight are not on the boss but on your own tanks. These are Nullification Barrier and Shroud of Reversal. The Nullification Barrier can be used to nullify boss damage and abilities. It has a 55-second cooldown. This is very important since the boss cycles his devastating abilities every 30 seconds, allowing your tanks to negate every other ability. Shroud of Reversal works similar to a Death Knight's Dark Sim, allowing the tank to recast spells that he has been hit with. This allows for extra damage most of the time and a very distinct advantage in Fist phase. One other note for tanks is that each phase will have a similar tank dot mechanic, which forces your tanks to swap. With the tank abilities in mind, let's discuss each phase, beginning with the staff phase. You will want to start the encounter with the boss near the staff weapon rack, and he will immediately pick that weapon. He will wield the staff until he reaches 75% health. The first ability the boss will use is called Arcane Velocity. This is a heavy, raid-wide AoE that does more damage the farther away a player is from the boss. This encourages the raid to stack up under the boss, as well as use Nullification Barrier for every other velocity. Be sure that you are stacking under the barrier, otherwise you will take damage from this ability. To complicate this, the boss will also cast Arcane Resonance, which targets 2 random players and will do area damage around them. That damage increases for each player within 6 yards of them, so a player with Resonance who stacks will instantly wipe the raid. To make it worse, the resonance is not exactly predictable and can happen immediately after the boss finishes casting velocity. To counter this, the raid must spread out approximately 1 second before the boss finishes casting to avoid an RNG wipe from resonance. At 75% health, the boss will drop the staff and select the next weapon based on which rack he is closest to. For this strategy, it should be the shield rack. During the shield phase, the boss has one main ability the raid must be aware of, Siphoning Shield. The boss will throw his shield and adds will spawn from random players, attempting to get to the shield. If this happens, the boss will heal, which will almost certainly cause a wipe. All DPS should switch to the adds and AoE them down. While the boss does not have his shield, he also hits the tanks as if he is dual wielding. Be sure to chain reduction cooldowns on the tanks to ensure that they survive. The other ability in this phase is Chains of Shadow. It works like Chain Lightning but is shadow damage. We found that a spread makes the healing and the snaring of the adds harder, so we just stack and heal through it. This makes the healing more AoE intensive, but gives the DPS an advantage. The tank should use Nullify on the shield every other time to cancel the adds spawning. At 50% health, Feng will drop his shield and should be positioned to pick up the fist weapon. During Fist phase, there will only be one ability that the raid will worry about. That ability is called Epicenter. It does raid-wide AoE damage and does less the further away from the boss that the raid is. In normal mode, this ability is handled by keeping the boss at the outer edge and the raid stacking in the middle during Epicenter. However, in hard mode we stack the entire raid on the boss. This means that if we take more than 2 ticks of the epicenter, we will die without a massive cooldown usage. To handle this, we use Nullification Barrier for every other one, and use Shroud of Reversal when Barrier is on cooldown. This phase has another ability called Lightning Fist, which sends 3 bolts of lightning at ranged players and stuns them on impact. We have a mage stand out and intentionally get hit by the bolts. The off-tank uses Shroud of Reversal on the mage to capture the lightning bolt, which then allows him to stun the boss. By stunning the boss, you can avoid all the damage from epicenter. This phase allows healers to get some mana back and allows their cooldowns to reset. It should not require any major raid cooldowns. At 25% health, the boss will pick up the spear and begin the final phase. During the spear phases, there is one thing each raider watches for: Wildfire Spark. The boss will randomly select a player and apply the Spark debuff. That player then has a few seconds to run away from the raid before a lethal fire patch drops. Since the raid should be stacked up behind the boss, it is important to move out of the group quickly with this spark. The other deadly AoE ability is Wildfire Infusion. Feng will draw flames to him and then infuse his weapon with Wildfire Infusion stacks. Each melee swing then pulses damage to the raid. This is a heavy amount of damage, and the raid should use heavy cooldowns to survive. In our case, we only have to survive one of these, but if you have to survive a second, have your DPS use all of their cooldowns. Throw everything you have at surviving those, because if you make it through the infusion damage, you should have a kill. Thank you for tuning in to another raid guide by PardeuxRaids.com. I hope this raid guide has been helpful for you, your guild, and your progression. Feel free to check out other resources provided at my site and to leave questions and comments. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on Twitter at PardeuxRaids for more information and the most recent updates to my site and videos.